And that's also where it comes into knowing your kids, right? Not just them as swimmers, but them as people and how they react to different things. How you talk to each one of them. Because you could have a group of 12 kids and each one of them needs something different.
Hello, everyone. We are back with the fourth episode today. Today we have Coach Natalie, the team managers and one of the longtime coach of Pearland Aquatics. So this is your first appearance here. You
Yeah,
wanna introduce yourself?
sure. Yeah, first time on. Thank you for having me. So, like you said, my name's Natalie. I work for Paralympic Aquatics. I've been a coach there for 15 years, and I've been co-team manager with another one of our staff members for 2 years now. And I'm also Gulf Swimming Sanctions Coordinator, which means for our local area here, I pretty much handle all of the meet announcements that come in, and I make sure that they are in line with what USA Swimming needs in order to sanction swim meets. So those are my three jobs.
It's been a long time since you have like a public appearance like this because 8 years ago when Pete
Yeah.
do the passenger interview, you were not like
No,
you were
I
not
didn't.
be able to get on because of like other things.
Yeah, no, I didn't do it. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to
yeah. So
have
it's the
my
first
first
time.
one.
Yeah, so it's the first time the world gonna know about you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yes, today we're gonna go over the growth of a swimmer, right? So for you, back in day one, do you remember when you started, like, how to learn how to swim and all of that?
Yeah. So I have pictures that my parents have kept of me at 6 months old in my grandparents' pool. So
Wow.
I really feel like the earlier the better that you can get children introduced to water.
Right.
It's just going to make things so much easier. So I was 6 months old, just splashing around. So I've loved water since day one. And so I've always swam in neighborhood pools, in my grandparents' pool, just for fun, just love to be in the water. But really, gymnastics was what I pursued when I was little. So that's kind of where I wanted to go. I wanted to do gymnastics just, through as long as I could. And so I did that as my serious sport. And swimming was always just on the side. So I did some summer league when I was at 7. I started summer league just because my parents saw a flyer and had some friends that had people in summer league, and they thought, well, let's put Natalie in it. She likes water. And because of my gymnastics background, I pretty much just out muscled every other little kid.
Wow.
I was 7 years old, just like I had no technical skills whatsoever, but I was just like moving my arms. So I was a really strong kid, and so I had some little like summer league success, and that was fun for me.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to keep doing this, but I still love gymnastics. So I did gymnastics all the way till I was about 13, and then I realized I'm too big for this. It's too hard. My body was starting to give out. I had wrist problems. I said, okay, well, these summer league coaches I have been pushing me to do club swimming. So I didn't start doing club swimming until I was 13.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went into the club swimming, arena, not really knowing what I was getting into, and going from summer league, where I was kind of like the best, I go to my first club meet and I finished like 45th in the 50 free. Wow. Yeah. So it was a definite shock, and I was like, okay, but it wasn't bad. It was like the wake up call I needed to like start committing.
Right.
So I committed to club swimming, and I ended up winning tags the next year. Tags is like the top.
In a year?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's the top 14 and under meet in the state of Texas. So I won the 53 when I was 14. And that, I think, for me was like, okay, I'm in. Like, this is what I need to be doing. And that kind of set in place everything moving forward. So then I got into high school swimming, still did club swimming, and then eventually got recruited. I got recruited to go to college and swim. So that's kind of my path.
Wow.
I've sort of hit every phase.
Yeah, so you did pretty much everything that a swimmer can do from day one.
Yeah, I kind of seen it all.
That's nice.
So I feel like, that provides me with a really good perspective in coaching, right? I've seen it all, I've done it all. Certainly not the pro level.
Right.
Never got there. But I've seen it all and I've done it all. And so when these children are kind of moving through our program, I can kind of give some perspective to parents as to what's next and what to expect.
Right. So back in the day, did your parents teach you how to swim, or?
I think they did. Like I said, I see pictures of myself really little where they're kind of in there with me. So I don't remember ever being part of a full on lesson program.
Okay.
I think I was just sort of self taught and they were in there with me and I just kind of copied what I saw.
Okay.
And so I just, as we get parents that come in for tryouts and they say, my kid's a fish, like I was a fish. I just like to swim. So I'm not
Right.
sure who really taught me.
Right.
I just remember always knowing how.
Right.
So
That's great. So
yeah.
then, moving from just learn how to swim and do all of that, and then
Hmm.
into your first introduction into competitive swimming in summer league and stuff like that. Was that like a really fun time, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure you can relate to this too because as high competitive swimmers, it's we love to race.
Right.
Like we love to compete. We love the moment of like you're getting on the blocks
Right.
and you're like adrenaline's
Yes.
going. So I hadn't really experienced that. I'd done gymnastics meets where it's just different. But whenever that whistle blows and you're like getting on the blocks, your heart rate's up. I loved that. Like
Yeah.
I was just straight up competitor. So
Yeah.
and I think that's important too. There's a lot of children that get in the sport who just don't like to compete.
Right.
And you can see it.
Yes.
And you know who they are.
Yes.
So I think it's important to know as a parent too, your child has to want to do this and they have to like love racing. And if they
Right.
don't love racing, this is going to be kind of a hard road to go down.
Right. Because I mean, you just get in the water and you just do one speed the entire time.
Yeah.
You don't even have to slow it down. You don't get tired.
Right.
It's hard to be competitive when we get to the time of that, right?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yes, and then the winning feeling is great as well. But
Hmm.
a lot of time it's a little journey when kids lose and then they just like crying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two side of competitive sport, the winning and the not winning side.
Sure. And I think it's important to also just put in perspective. I mean, when kids get on a block, it's intimidating and it's scary.
Right.
You're competing with other people and there's people in the stands watching you. It's very
Right.
much like a you're in a band on the stage or you're in a
Right.
choir on the stage.
Right.
You're looked at. Nobody wants to be embarrassed. Nobody
Right.
wants to finish last in their heat.
Yes.
So I think there's, you have to have that like innate instinct of like I want to be the first person to put my hand on the
Yeah.
wall.
And it is a totally different environment though, right? Because in practice you have like a lot of kids in the water, different groups in the water, the water is moving and all of that. This is when you get on the block at the meet, the water is like flat out quiet and
Yeah.
just 8 people ready to go,
Just you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
the feeling of like when you dove in empty water, you first in, it's quiet out there. I love that.
Yes,
That's my
that's
favorite part.
amazing. And
Yeah.
all you can really hear is like just like bubbles rushing and
Right.
like your own kind of like for me it was kind of like grunts as I
Right.
went through the race.
Yes.
I could hear that and that's
Yes.
about it.
Yeah. So, were your parents like ever pressure you as young kids?
No, I'm really, really lucky. I have amazing parents who I never felt true pressure from them. There were times when I think they got really invested in what I was doing and would be like, "Oh, do you want to go? We could take you over to this pool and do a little extra," which I always wanted to do.
Okay.
But in terms of like pressuring me and, basically saying, bribing me to do well or anything like that, I never had that experience. It was very much my sport and they wanted me to have every opportunity I could to be great at it,
Mm-hmm.
but I never felt like I was pushed in any way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that decision of I'm gonna drop the gymnastic and move over here, was that like your choice or?
Yep, that was my choice. The summer league coaches had talked to my parents many times about Natalie. Really, she needs to go to club swimming. Like this summer league stuff is fun, big fish, little pond kind of thing. But if she wants to pursue swimming, she needs to do more.
Yeah.
And they always told me that was an option because we had some places around that we could go. But I just love gymnastics, and I was like, I want to pursue this. So I was doing gymnastics like every day. So it was really my choice. When my wrist started giving out, I also felt like I couldn't get around the bars fast enough. Like I was just a big girl,
Yeah.
and you can't be big and do gymnastics well at a high level.
Yeah.
So I just made the decision, and I was like, let's try swimming. I like
Yeah.
it. Let's do it. So,
Yeah, I was on the same boat. I was doing badminton and swimming
okay.
until I'm like 12, and then I
Yeah.
decided to drop one.
And I think that's a good age to really like figure out for sure what you want to do. I think when
Right.
you're little, you should experience other things. I did softball one season. I tried basketball, that was terrible. So you just have to find what you're good at, and I
Right.
think experiencing other sports is important, and other
Right.
activities, choir, band, all those
Right.
things when
Yes.
you're little. That's really important.
Yeah. My
Before you,
parents,
yeah.
yeah, my parents also tried to put me into basketball for like a season,
How was that?
learn how to go. Well, it's work because, but my problem is, I swimmer can't run, or maybe I can't run at all.
Yeah, maybe
Like
it's
it's
you.
right, it's rough. But like even though like back then I do a lot of badminton, there's a lot of like running and drilling in it, but I love
Mm.
that. But like basketball, I can't get a hand of it. But then again, like in Asian we have the myth of right, sport gonna make you taller.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so swimming, basketball, volleyballs are the top threes. So like those reaching
You gotta
sport,
try
right? So
it.
yeah, my parents did try to put me in there. So
Hmm.
I tried quite a lot of sport and stuff like that, and soccer is a big thing over there in Vietnam. So
Yeah,
yeah, we did all of that. But again, money comes first.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, in your
swimming.
situation,
Yeah, swimming make more money for me back in the day. So
yeah,
I stick with it.
yeah.
Yeah. So after those years of summer league, and get into competitive swimming,
Hmm.
what was the challenge?
I think the challenge was not being the best anymore.
Oh, well,
Figuring out that I was not as great as I thought I was. It was a huge wake up call, and it's a
right.
good wake up call.
Yeah.
But it really just motivated me, right, to work harder and commit more. So that was a challenge. I think another challenge for me was I was on a really small team, which I liked at the time because I'm a very introverted person, but I didn't really have a huge team experience where I could really socialize with a lot of different people on my club team. There were a few girls that I would talk to, but I think it's important to have a good support group of kids that you can kind of talk to about your experience, especially going into a club swimming environment where I didn't really know what I was doing. And I didn't know what was coming down the road. I would have loved to have more kind of mentor older athletes that I could have looked at and been like, this is what I'm experiencing. Is this normal? What's coming next for me? What are my options moving forward? Because I didn't really have that.
Right.
But it wasn't a huge detriment. Like I loved my little team that I was on, and
So
but
were
looking
you
back at it,
so were you stuck with one team, or did you move around?
no, I just went with one team. I was with Angleton Aquatic Club with Coach Rick, who's fantastic. So I was on that. It was about 30 minutes from my house. So I had a little carpool of girls and boys that I went down there with. But I was on that club all the way through high school.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then you swim high school and year-round team altogether.
Yeah. So once I got into high school, I definitely wanted to do high school swimming. And high school swimming is very much like it brings the fun back into things. Club swimming obviously is going to be the more serious route. And high school swimming brought an element of fun into it. It's seasonal. It's a short amount of time with a lot of high energy. It's more team oriented, and those are the kids that you go to school with, right?
Right.
So you're bonded in that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of those girls I grew up with on summer league, so those were like my best friends.
Right.
A couple of them did some club swimming, but yeah, high school swimming came in, provided kind of that fun element. But I always knew the difference, right? Club swimming is where I go and do if I want to swim at college level. High school swimming is not going to get me there, but high school swimming is going to help kind of supplement my mental state and keep it fun for me. So I did high school swimming all the way through, and then I was recruited by quite a few schools my junior year and had to sort of figure out where I wanted to go. I ended up signing with TCU, which is in Fort Worth,
Yeah.
and I swam there in college. So
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't seen it, but I heard rumors. Some of the kids come back and told me that they see your name on the record board at school still. How
yeah,
many years later?
yeah.
How do you feel when the kids told you that?
It's kind of fun. I mean, some of them don't know my last name, so they don't know that it's me. But some of them have come up and been like, "Is that you?" It's fun. I really can't believe the records are still there. It's been a long time since I've been in high school. But that part's fun is when they do go to those facilities and they see my name, and maybe it gives me a little more credibility as a coach because
Right.
sometimes I feel like they don't
Right.
know what I'm talking
Right. Right.
about.
Right. Yes.
So in that regard, it's kind of
But then
fun.
again, right, like it also kind of show the gap, right, the difference of right, like tag swimmers,
Sure.
compared to just local high school swimmer, like
Hmm.
the gap right there. Maybe that's why it's still there.
Yeah, and you're not going to. Well, first of all, records are just. It's hard to even know what good ones are. I mean, you can break records, but the records before you could have been terrible,
Right.
right? So it doesn't mean a whole lot. It gets your name on a board, but it doesn't
Yeah,
mean
it's cool.
it's cool, but it doesn't mean a ton.
Yeah.
But it's really clear who the club swimmers are
Yeah.
when you're in the high school world. And to do anything in swimming, you got to be in club swimming
Yeah.
because you can be gung ho for 3 months and have a fun time. But what about the other 9 months?
Yeah.
You got to put the work in behind the scenes.
Yeah. So that is one part of the U.S. swimming life that I didn't have a chance to experience. The
Hmm.
try to balance out your school, your high school swimming, and your year-round swimming. Because
Yeah.
in Vietnam, I didn't have to balance that. I just had to balance the
School
school
and swim.
and the competitive swimming.
Sure.
Right? I didn't have like that second swim of the day.
Hmm.
So how does that feel? Like how many swim did you have to do totals in the week between the twos?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. I had coaches on the high school scene who were flexible, right? If you need to go do stuff for club, that's fine. But most of the practices, I made all of them because my practices for high school were after school for about an hour and 15 minutes or something like that, hour and a half. And then I would get home and I would do my homework and then I would go to club swimming. So I found a structure to it and a schedule to it most of the time. So if I had a dual meet or something, I would miss high school or I would miss club swimming practice, and my coach there was understanding about that too. So they kind of worked together to make sure that I had both experiences. But I think it's so important to just have a structure and a schedule, right? If you get into a rhythm of something, it becomes easy to kind of like do all of that. And then if you have a day where you need a break, take off a day, take a break mentally, physically, whatever you
Yeah,
need.
and I feel like those years like built who you are right now with like how good you are with like scheduling everything and 1 hour out. Like it's
Maybe.
part of your life so far. That's how I feel.
Well, without swimming, I was thinking about this on the way here. I don't know where I would be without swimming because it is my life.
Right.
It's my career.
Yes.
It's everything I do revolves around it. So, but I think there's so many different life lessons you can learn in swimming
Yes.
by training, by going through the competitive
Hmm.
process. And so that's what I love as a coach is being able to kind of teach these kids those different life lessons through failure, through success, through hard work, all of that stuff.
Yes. And I mean, you've been working as a coach for a long time now.
Yeah.
You have a lot of like kids come and goes, right? How many generation of kids? You see them when they are literally babies in the water
Mm-hmm.
with their parents in a little pool waiting for their older sibling, and now they're coming up
Yeah.
and they join the club and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's great feelings.
Yeah, well, you're starting to see some of that too because you've been here a long time. You see the
Yes.
kids kind of grow up through the
Yes,
program.
yes.
Yeah.
I see kids like as baby in their towel, parents bring them to the pool, and now like
Mm-hmm.
little girls join the team and all of that.
Isn't
Yes,
that
it's
crazy?
lovely. Yes, yes, that's great. It's like feeling like, oh yeah, we're passing the torch and all of that. Yeah,
Yeah, and don't you think it's cool whenever say you're getting some now who are starting to get into like later years of high school and they'll come visit and they'll see you and you're like,
yes,
wow, this is the person you like turned out to be.
yes,
And you'd like to think that swimming played a pretty big role in that too.
yes. And
So
that's
that's
one of my
always fun.
thing. That's one of my thing from day one. I always feels like I want to be a coach that the kids can feel free to share with me pretty much anything in their life.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I have my longtime coach that he's literally called me last week when he saw
Hmm.
my second episode with Cheryl come up on
Yeah.
YouTube. He called me and like, "Hey, that's cool," and like I try to invite him to be on once in a while.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's great, and yeah. So speaking of competitive swimming, so then when you transition from competitive and high school into college, like
Hmm.
was that again a whole new world up there?
Yeah. Well, really different, right? Because I was living with my parents, I had a structure, and then you go to college where you're living on your own with friends that you've just met.
And they don't do the
And
same thing you do. I
right, you're
bet.
learning how to live with someone else, you're learning how not to be with your family anymore, you're learning like your new schedule of, I would do doubles on certain days, I would have weightlifting on certain days. Then I had school, right, where I was fortunate at my school. There was like a study hall area, and you could get
Oh,
tutors if you needed it because they gave athletes that privilege. But you're kind of on your own. I mean, it's just sort of like figure it out. And I'd never had to do that because I've always had a good support system around me helping me. So that was really hard trying to like figure out my new structure, my new schedule, and balance everything. And I struggled with it, to be honest, with the school and with the swimming and the dry land stuff, and then trying to fit in some sort of social time. It was really hard. It took me like a year to figure out how I was gonna like move forward.
yeah. So in those like difficult time, right? Like trying to
Hmm.
balance all of that in life, like were there any moments that you feel like I want to drop out of this sport?
Well, and I actually did.
Oh,
So I went through my junior year of college. I was halfway through the season, and I got sick,
oh.
and I had to be out of the water for about a week. And it was like the best week of my life.
It
I
so much
was
free time.
so much time. I was sick for the first part of it, and I started getting better, but they held me out of the water for a little bit longer, and I was like, that's fine with me. I'll heal up. But I really realized in that time frame, I was like, I don't even think I want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want this commitment. And at the time, I had not been swimming very well for a long time. I hadn't dropped time in particular events that I felt were my strongest in a long time. And I was like, why am I doing all of this work, putting so much time and energy into this to not have any like progress happening? And so I had kind of been in that mental state for a while, but getting sick and having time away, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I went to my coach and I basically said, this is where I'm at. At the time, I was on scholarship for a certain amount, and that played into my decision as well. I talked to my parents and I said, I don't want to leave this school. It was a pretty expensive school, and if I wasn't on scholarship, how was I going to do that and
Right.
continue to stay there? And they were really supportive, and they said, we'll help. If you want to stay there, we'll help you. We want you to be happy. So I ended up quitting, and I don't regret it at all. It kind of led me down the road of coaching later.
Right.
So I think it was the best decision for me at the time, but it was a hard one to make because that was my whole identity,
Yeah.
was swimming.
Yeah. So we're gonna touch the coaching part in a little bit, but right now I want to get back to what you just said. The feeling like I'm getting stuck at this
Mm-hmm.
point, like I can't make any progress. I see that
Yeah,
a lot
a
with
lot.
swimmer nowadays, right? Normally, I feel like that happened the most from 13 to 15, but
Sure.
now I see more and more of like 10 to 12 included as
Yeah,
well.
and I think you'll see it in girls earlier than boys, right?
Right.
Because of the maturation process. But yeah, it's really hard. And I think that's where you really have to have a supportive coach who you feel comfortable enough to go to and share how you're feeling, and that they can be that support for you, because I didn't feel like I had that in college at the time. And so, just somebody who can sit down and talk with you about their experiences and let you know that this is temporary, especially at that age. When you're 10 to 13, even a little bit older, it's temporary. Like, you just kind of have to ride the storm. Um, so I think that's important to have somebody kind of in your corner that you can go to and talk to about it, because we don't like to talk about that stuff. We
Right.
don't like to go and say, I'm feeling this way, can you help me with this? That's hard for kids, I think, to do.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I always try to tell people that when you train and do competitive
mm-hmm.
sport, there's only two sides of things, right? Like the natural improvement and then the training improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Like natural improvement, like by how much taller you're gonna be, how much muscle mass you're gonna put on,
Sure.
and all of that. So we have like kids that grow way earlier, right? They dominate
Yeah.
at a young age and all of that, but then they're gonna stop their natural physique gonna done for them, and then that's when the
Mm-hmm.
training process and the improvement gonna need it to be there.
Yeah.
And if you don't really put in the work, it's gonna be hard to put it there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a lot of pieces that go into it, right? There's the attendance part, There's the effort at practice part. There's the are we going to swim meets where we can actually see growth in more than just your favorite event.
Right.
Because that's a huge one. I feel like a lot of kids these days get stuck on, I'm a 100 freestyler, this is what I do, 50 free, 100 free, I'm not good at anything else, these are what I want to focus on. And if you focus on those every single meet, you're not going to see the improvement and the growth.
Right.
But if you start looking more broadly and you start doing more events at swim meets, you're going to see growth in other places, and that is going to keep you going when those prime events are not going well.
So what was your event?
In high school, I was a 50 freestyler, 100 freestyler. I dabbled in the 100 fly, but it wasn't until college when I made some major improvements in my 100 fly. But that was really the one event that I did well in college. The others, I was significantly slower than when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I never got better at those. So I was glad to have another event
Right.
that I could focus on.
Yeah.
And my other strokes got better too. I just didn't compete them much in college because they really recruit you for certain things, and they don't really let you go outside of those things.
Because I mean the free sprint field is just so many swimmers in there.
Mm-hmm. And it's so fickle, right? The 50 free.
Yeah, one mistake.
One mistake, the race is
Yeah,
done.
your breakout is a little early,
Yep.
and then you're stuck in the water, and it's over.
Yeah.
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 That's why I do 200 fly.
Yeah, you don't have as much as
No,
many people
I have-
who can do it.
I'm lucky to have a full hit of people normally.
Yeah.
Normally I swim with, 2 other people, make it 3 enough to make an event. Boom, get
Yeah.
out there, collect the money.
Collect the money.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't even warm up for those 200 events because I look at the names, I'm like, all right, who are these 2 kids? Oh, I know them,
Gonna crush those guys.
Yeah, just get out there,
Yeah.
I don't, because, swimming my best time won't do me any good. I don't have extra like the Olympians right now, go out there, break the world record, get
Yeah.
what? Like $35,000 record? I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, money is the same goal. Get out there, save a little energy for the 4 a.m. later on.
Yeah.
I do like devil events, 2 fly 4 a.m. and
Yeah, I don't know what you were
1500.
doing. That's crazy to me.
Oh, easy money.
I guess, yeah.
Those 3 events, every event, 2 hit max.
Yeah.
And everyone on that field, so
You did that every meet though?
pretty much.
Ugh.
I did 2 back and 2 press, probably 1 a season max. Like some season I don't even think I do that. That's why in Vietnam there's a meet format that lasts in 4 days. Each day is a stroke.
Okay.
If you are 10 and under, you do a 50 of a stroke. If you are 11 and 12, if you are 11 and up, you do 100.
And it's just 1 stroke per day.
Yeah, so each day you roll up, you do 1 event.
Oh wow.
And at the end of the day, like who scored the most point, get like a trophy type thing.
Okay.
We can do
Yeah,
that.
that's different than here.
Yes, we can do that. That's like the first meet of the season type thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so Peak can try that for the
Yeah,
next inch
new
squat.
format.
Yeah, each kid do for 8 and under. We can do 25. That'd
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always try to bring that over. But 4 day is not fun.
4
So-
days not.
No, sometimes I just skip the breaststroke day. It's don't even show up. Like why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like 4th heat out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even there. So yeah, that's fun. So yes, when we come back, we're gonna go into your coaching career and
Sure.
all of that.
Sounds good.
Right, we're back on this second half. I want to get back to that time frames when you transition from a summer league swimmer into competitive swimmer. Yes,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a big fish in a little pond. I have my experience with that as well.
Yeah.
So I swim pretty good 13 14 years 13 14 years old, 200 fly. My first 15 and up 200 fly race I swim with some older kids, and I was second place. The winner, I heard him talk to his friends in Kudap, was like, he said he didn't try, he just followed me and beat me at the end. So that's another key problem back then, right? Like the
Yeah.
experience of the young swimmer and coming up. So for you, what was that difficulty of, oh, I was winning and now I'm not? Was that like a
Yeah.
defeated, I want to quit and all of that?
Yeah, no, not for me. I mean, for me, the initial shock of it, I was kind of like, whoa, these people are fast. I gotta like do some work if I want to stay in this upper area here. So for me, it was more motivating. I think we see a lot of kids come in who have had maybe some summer league success, and they kind of brag to us about the times that these reserve times or champ times or whatever they've had, which mean nothing in club swimming, but in their world they were pretty good. And then they go to their first club meet, especially when they get to like a championship meet and there's a lot of teams there, and they get kind of smacked in the face with the reality that, okay, this is a whole other level, right? So I think it's a good reality check. But some people don't handle it as well, and so that's why I think it's really important to have a good support system, parents who understand that this is a process,
Yeah.
and who don't we don't get too high, we don't get too low. We kind of stay in our middle ground, because this is going to be kind of a wild ride if they go all the way through the sport. You're going to have a lot of terrible races, and you're going to have a lot of really great ones. So it's about just keeping it even keel all the time, and understanding that when things don't go well, there's more to come. We focus on what's next. When things do go well, we celebrate it, but then we get back to work.
Because I talk to some young parents, I
Mm-hmm.
would tell them that the coaches, we look at the kids and then we memorize their stroke in that day one until the day of. But then the parents, sometimes they don't remember that.
Yeah, I think that's huge too, because understanding where they came from and where they are now, you lose perspective when you're going through the sport and you're like, oh, we didn't drop time at this swim meet. What's going on? And it's like, look at where they came from and
Right.
stop fixating on this moment, because there's a lot more to come if they stay in the sport. And that's going to be the key, is keeping them in the sport. It's not going to be fun when parents are going to be putting pressure on me. It's not going to be fun when parents are upset with me for not dropping time. Those are the things that start to eat away at an athlete, and that is a big reason why a lot of kids don't stay in the sport, is because there's too much pressure put on them to perform, and we're not thinking of it as a long-term process. We're thinking of it as an immediate outcome, and that's where we have to kind of shift as
Right.
parents, shift the mindset.
Right. But then again, I talked about this before. The parents are the one that paying,
Yep.
the money. So again, they want the result, and sometimes they just really focus on the result, and then they forgot about the journey to get there, and like how the kids feel
Absolutely.
and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we're not having fun at certain points throughout the year, we're not going to want to do this anymore. So I think it's a huge responsibility of the parents to make sure that when the times are hard and when the kids aren't swimming their best, we're still going to keep this really positive. We're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it fun. And if that means we have to talk to the coach a little bit about how can we get through this, let's do that.
Right. And then I mean, when talking to the coaches, hopefully the parents, approach with a open mindset of like, we trying to put the kids in the center, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
best for the kids and all of that, instead of just again driving down into the result.
or
Because
or living vicariously through their children,
right, yes,
because a lot of parents do that as
yes,
well.
because again, adult, we are here and try to provide the best for the kids. The parents, feed them, bring them to the pool, and then we are here at the pool, try to give them the best
Mm-hmm.
workout, the best technique we can tell them to do, type
Absolutely.
thing. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, so that winning young league and stuff like that make it a bad picture though, because when I first come to the US, I tried to talk to you and Coach John and like, hey, I feel like I can hang with these guys who are the top end back
Mm-hmm.
then, and like, yeah, he doesn't know what he's
It's
saying,
just a
type thing,
lifeguard.
right? No, but back then, again, I'm 20, a little too old, yes, but I did feel like I can hang with them, so
Yeah.
again to understand the body, right? Because at certain points the stroke that you've been doing doesn't fit your body anymore, and again you have to figure out what your body needed. I did
Yes.
spend 6 months to fix my fly and be able to do it competitively at 100 fly, and then another 6 months to be able to use that in my 200.
Right.
And again, like, understand your body, fixing the stroke to fit your body is like the next
Yeah.
step to transfer you from a swimmer to the next level.
Sure. And I think understanding that a stroke that a child starts out being great at does not necessarily mean they're going to be still great at that stroke as they get older. It could transition to a whole other stroke. So we don't ever give up on anyone's stroke because as they develop, things could switch,
Right.
right? I ended up being a butterflyer. And while I had a decent butterfly when I was an age group swimmer, it was never my full on strength.
Right.
Things flip for me,
Right.
even at the college level.
Right.
So things just change and your strengths become
And
different.
and like nowadays, if you look at the top like swimmers, you see Ryan Murphy make finals in the Olympic trial
Yeah.
in butterfly.
Yeah.
You know, like he been known as a backstroke swimmer for years. And
Yeah.
then look at Leo Marchand, who win what, two fly, two press on the same day. Who does that?
Who does that?
And I would say if you put him in two back, he'd probably make the podium. You know.
Yeah.
So the all round swimmer is, you know, the better one for sure. And what parents most of the time don't realize is every stroke, you know, gonna have some benefit for other stroke.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I also think too, having a weak stroke is the best because there's so much work we can do to get it better.
Right.
And as you get older, those strengths that you have, it becomes harder to find little tweaks here and there to make them better. So the weaker ones, we can work with a lot more and give you tools to be better at those.
And spend time working on those weaker stroke gonna give you a little off time from the main stroke that you are struggling to improve. That's what it feels like. You know, give some time to work on other things and then, you know, get back into it and, you know, refresh again.
And so much, it's so mental too.
Right.
Like I don't see progress here, but I'm going to try this. And then I see major progress because I haven't been focusing on this.
Yeah.
So it's just that mental switch is helpful.
Right. And that is one of the reasons why we, the coaches, we, you know, cycle the kids events around, right? We don't stuck with one event every single month, every single meet and try to drive it down to the best that they can. Is never end.
No, we don't specialize, especially with age group kids. Like there's just absolutely no reason. When things change, their body's still developing. Strengths can become different down the road. Specialization is just out of the question, at least for our team.
Yes. And then like when you work on just one thing over and over and over, you know, they're gonna be what, like injured and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have to fix my fly because of my shoulder, right? There was risk of, you know, I twist it too much, it's gonna be, you know, not be able to flexible and all of that later.
Yeah.
So I have to like, you know, adjust it. And that another thing, like a lot of kids when we tell them, all right, fixed it, fix that, we show them, they get it for once and then boom, they off for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to like just erase right there.
Yeah, consistency is key. So that's where that attendance piece comes in, right? Because we're here and we're ready to help, but we can't help if they're not here.
Yeah.
And if they're not here both mentally and physically.
Yeah. So as a swimmer back then, when you had to take off for like 3 or 4 days and stuff like that, when you come back, how do you feel? Do you feel like
terrible?
The catch at all?
No, I felt like I was spinning. I felt just totally out of shape. Even after 3 or 4 days, I felt very strange whenever I got back in the water. So, and we take our team takes a 3-week break. So I know whenever those kids get back from the 3-week break, they're like, "This is very foreign feeling. It does not feel right." But it's important.
But for me, I love those first 2 or 3 weeks back though. The energy is high, the kids is fresh, and like those are great time to break their bad habit.
Yeah.
Because they don't even remember what they did. Everything's new.
Right.
So get in and, you know, work new stuff.
Yeah, and what you bring up is a great point with the year-round stuff. You can't do anything year-round without having some sort of time off throughout that. Otherwise, we're never going to make it to college and beyond, right? It's never going to happen because it's too much. So taking that time every now and again to have a little break, like we build in a spring break, we take a week off. We build in this 3-week break in the summer after all of the champ meets are done. That's important. So it's really important to just mentally reset because going, I mean, you can't do that for a job. You can't do that for a sport. You can't do that for school. I mean, you've got to have a little bit of downtime to just relax and not focus so much of your energy on these things.
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of time parents be like, oh, my kids love swimming. They talk about that all the time, you know. And then, when we downtime, some parents are going to ask us to provide some workout.
Correct. But that's also not seeing the bigger picture of where we want them to be in 5, 10 years.
Right.
That's very much in the now. They love swimming. We got to do swimming 24/7. Not understanding that there is a real thing called quitting the sport because we are just doing too much at a too young of an age.
Yes.
Which is why for our program, we start with a 2 day a week, 45-minute group. And that's a great intro for a 6, 7 year old. And then we go to 3 days for an hour, and we kind of progress from there. But there's no way we're going to bring in a 6 year old and go 6 days a week with them. Way too much. There's no progression to do after that.
Yeah, because burnout is real, right? Because in talking to Coach John,
Mm-hmm.
a kid that who's 10 years old, been in a sport, been in a team for 4 to 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
they have another 8 year ahead of them, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if
Yeah.
you just put in too much work at the earlier, the kid's gonna
Yeah.
hate it.
And it's not fun anymore. And if it's
Right.
not fun, we don't want to do it.
Right. So later on in the career, when you decided, all right, I'm gonna drop, the competitive side of swimming, were you transition into, a lifeguard or something else related?
I didn't know what to do.
Oh,
So I had a huge identity crisis when I quit swimming because my identity was wrapped up in this. I am a swimmer. This is what I do. This is what I've done for a long time. This is who I am. And so when you lose that, who are you? You have to kind of like figure out how to eat because I was still eating like I was
oh,
burning
I feel
thousands
that.
of calories
I feel
every
that.
week. I had to learn how to eat correctly. I had to learn how to have a brand new schedule because I have all this time now. What do I do with it? How can I, fill this kind of void that I have from missing this sport? And it's just like figuring out who I am and what I want because what I wanted for so long, my goals were wrapped up in swimming. Without swimming, what are my goals? What do I want for my life? Didn't know. So it was a lot of like soul searching, and I don't think we talk about this very much. I've had conversations with Anne about this. There's a place where people go after I wish there was a place people could go after they quit, where it would be more of like therapy and counseling as to how to transition out of the sport because we just don't talk about this.
Right.
Like when you're done, what how do you like move into something else?
Right.
Because for a lot of us, we've been doing it for years and years and years at a
Yes.
pretty high level, and it's like I don't know what to do now.
Right.
I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I'm going to do moving forward.
Right. Yeah, I mean the most obvious one is right, like still stick with the aquatic world, right, for a while,
Mm-hmm.
like what lifeguarding, swim lessons.
Which you did lifeguard. Well, coming over here, you
Right.
got into the aquatic world through lifeguarding, right?
Right. No, over there I still work as, lifeguarding. After I done with swimming at 17, I work lifeguarding um Tamaros.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Tamaros in Vietnam is an actual paid job and not volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah, they are, uniform, trained, and all of that in there.
Okay.
So with that, I did some of that, and then some swim meet organizers for some company they want to do the in-house events and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
You
I
stay
run
pretty
some of that
connected
as
then.
well. Yes, because again, I have a good group of people that I train with, like some people that I still talk about to
Sure.
nowadays, and I had the Paralympic guy to, train. I was his pacer and all of that.
Okay.
So I was still, do training 3, 4 times in the morning and all of that, but, one, didn't get paid, two, didn't go to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then when I moved over, well, first go to college, then find a job, right,
Right.
to support myself and my family, and then lifeguarding comes, and didn't know a thing. Try to look around, do the lifeguard course and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and then transition into my dad's friends have a friend that have a kids that need to know how to swim.
Yeah.
And he say she say, and hey, we know this guy who
That's how it
swim and all
starts.
that. Yeah. And get over there. I remember my first paycheck from that guy was like $200 for a few
Ooh.
lessons. I don't remember how much I charged, but it was huge.
Yeah.
Like my first ever paycheck. It was huge. And long story short, I connected with Cheryl and do swim lessons and do more over into Red Cross
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So yes, the field is wide open, but have to get there and like what path you need to get it because
Yeah.
nowadays sport, I feel like sport is just entertainment,
An extra activity.
right? Because you know there's a lot more into it. Um, the branding of the athlete and all of that are new fields that it feels
Mm-hmm.
like people are not fully invested into that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And for swimmer that done with their competitive side of swimming, coaching normally is one of the direct path
Yeah.
into it. But do you feel like not everyone can be a great coach because coaching is not about just back in the day, right? Like pushing them, keep them moving and all of that. Now it's a lot more about how you passing your knowledge to the kids, philosophy and all of that in there.
Yeah, well, and also you can't just transition from swimming to coaching because what if you don't like children?
Right.
That's a huge piece. You have to
Yes.
love children and you have to be willing to work with parents too.
Right.
And you have to be willing to not make a lot of money because you're never going to in the coaching world unless get to some, running a very large team or something. But um, so there's a lot of factors going into the coaching piece, which I kind of transitioned into the coaching through summer league. I started in summer league coaching, kind of like I did with my actual swim journey. So it's very much in line. But I think those are the big things you have to think about is like, you know, when I transition out, do I even want to be in the aquatic world
Right.
anymore? Because for me, I liked coaching, but other than that, I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to
Yeah.
go swim on my own and just to stay in shape or anything. Was done with water, except for when it came to other people being in it. So I think that's an important thing to think about. It's just like if I want to coach, I have to love children. I have to be able to work with parents, and I have to be able to have this lifestyle where I'm working at night. It's not a normal
Right.
lifestyle.
At
So,
weekends
and weekends.
and
It's
sometimes 3 weekends in a row.
well, and I think too, you know, teachers and coaches, especially in 2024, are therapists now. They are teaching and coaching like they've always done.
Therapy.
Therapy. They are cheerleaders.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that they do now in 2024, or that children need now in 2024 in this world we live in. I feel like their role has kind of expanded.
Yes.
So, and it's all important stuff. It's all to help children, but
Yes.
you have to be willing to kind of do that extra
Yes.
work.
And one of the challenge that I had to face when I first started coaching, first, not just my language, but second of all, speaking the kids' language. I tried to
Yeah.
share this with like all the junior coaches coming up now. I'm like, you guys can't talk to them your swimmer language. You have to talk to them as their language. Meet
Right.
them where they are. Because
Yes.
like if you just tell the kids, hey, why don't you push off streamline and do 6 dolphin kicks? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you have to like speak different way to little kids, explain it to them,
Sure.
and like the patient in there and like different expectation. Just why?
Yeah, and that's also where it comes into knowing your kids, right? Not just them as swimmers, but them as people and how they react to different things. How you talk to each one of them. Because you could have a group of 12 kids and each one of them needs something different.
Yeah.
So that's where it's important to get to know them. You're not just showing up to do a job and leaving, you're actually like diving in and getting to know them on a personal level.
Yes.
So that's important too, I think.
So what lead you into coaching? Like was that like a coach that inspired you, or you just want to stick around the water?
That's kind of funny. My mom always said, "I think you would be a great coach," and I said, "Absolutely not. I don't want to work with kids."
Oh.
And that was me growing up, right? I was like, I wanted to be a psychologist, and I wanted to. I'm very much into like the mental health space, so I wanted to do that. But as I got older, there was a job that presented itself in the summertime when I was going to be coming home anyway from college, and they needed a head swim coach, and I needed a job. I was working with Juan actually as a swim lesson instructor. So I did have something lined up, but I wanted to try this as well because my parents had always thought I'd be good at it. It was good money. I was like, maybe I'll try it, and then the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, you just stuck.
I'm stuck here.
Yeah,
So
and I mean, year after year, new kids, coming up, new hopes coming up, new faces,
mm,
the excitement of them.
yeah,
When we do tryout, parents like a little
yeah,
nervous, but the kid is exciting to be there. Like
mm.
I love that some kids when they go to the tryout, like they already told me like tons of things that
Oh
I met them for the first time.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that feeling for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then like yes, the when you coaching for so long, the struggle is there, right? Like yes, the kids struggle, and sometimes you roll into the pool, and you already have a long day because some other coach, they work at a job
Sure.
in during the day as well, so it's rough. So sometimes when you get there and it's like a difficult practice, how do you
Mm.
recover after that to get back another day?
It's really hard.
because because I mean I go to swim meet, I look around at the team and all of that. I see some familiar faces that always there, but like each meet, each team, I feel like have a new coach type thing.
Yeah, the turnaround of coaches is crazy because of I think it's a lot of different things, right? I think it's the lifestyle, it's the pay, it's the parents these days. It's very challenging. And then if you don't have a group of really excited kids who want to be there and want to work, that's an extra layer of like energy you have to bring to get them motivated. There's not as much self motivation in some of these groups these days, so it's a hard job, and you just have to like grind through it. I don't know. I think for me, going to a swim meet is where I can kind of see like the culmination of the work. Because sometimes I feel like at practice, I'm like, I don't know if I'm reaching them. I don't know if they're retaining any of this. We could look terrible at practice, and the next day you go to a swim meet and you're
Who
like,
are
who
they?
are these children? And I had that moment a couple meets ago, and I was like, something we're doing is working. Something is working because they look fantastic at this meet. When at practice, we've had a rough couple of weeks. So I think being able to go to meets and actually see some of the payoff is really important to kind of get your mind right going into another training
Yes,
cycle.
yes, and then you get back to the pool, back to work. Yes,
Yeah.
it's great. But then coaching for me, it's great that we have like a supportive group of coaches as well. That's one
Yeah.
of the big things. Again, like
Huge.
we share story, this pool, that pool, and then every single meet, we have this happen. Like the good thing and the bad thing, we can, free to share and get motivation and move on.
Yeah.
I feel like that the best thing we have so far because for me, I feel like for so far this season, like the coaches, the group spirit is all time high right now. That's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I think we have a great group of people, and the same can be said for any workplace. If you have a good, supportive core group of people, it makes work so much more fun and so much better. And if you don't have a core group that you can, you know, rely on, depend on, and vent to, and all the things that we do, it's a challenge.
Yes.
You just don't want to be around them, and you don't have that kind of support. So I
Yeah.
think we're super fortunate in the group that we have right now, where we all get along so well, and we all feel comfortable enough to talk to each other about really whatever. And honestly, the staff is kind of what gets you through some of those really hard
Yeah.
times with the kids,
Yeah.
because we can all relate and we can all like support each other in those
Yes.
moments.
Yes. And then again, it feels like for us, peak, we have the better turnaround coaches, right? Like throughout the entire Gulf.
Oh yeah, I
Because
mean,
look at the core on deck. Like we see us, and
yeah,
then other teams. Normally they have what, like three main,
yeah. I mean, you'll
coaches.
see some people who stay with the team for a very long time, but in terms of the amount of people we've had stay on our club for, you're at 10 years almost,
Yeah.
right? We've got, probably 4 or 5 core people here who've been here a long time. And that's kind of unheard of, that many people who stuck around at one place.
Yeah. And then
So
even though like some people, step back for a little bit, but they still come back and help out one way or the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's not been as many people who have left because they're unhappy with like our club. It's been more so like stuff going on in their personal life where they need to step
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have a great environment, and I feel like we really are prioritizing our coaches, right? We're making sure that, scheduling works great for them, that they have some time off. And then if they need time off, we make sure that they get that. So I think that's really important, just making sure everyone feels taken care of. And if people feel taken care of, they want to stay.
Yeah. That's good. So do you feel like we are, in need of coaches?
Always, always in need of coaches.
Right.
But very dependable, quality people, right? Because you can find people on the streets to coach,
Right.
but they're not going to be the kind of people that are going to get the best out of children, or that are going to know what they're doing, or are going to be dependable.
Yeah, and I mean, with different coaches, I feel like we're gonna have different perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different viewing of the stroke, the sport, and like the kids.
Yeah, well, what's amazing about our staff too is how diverse we are. We have several people from different countries, and we have so many different like walks of life that have happened within swimming still, and so we can kind of really bounce ideas off of
Yeah.
each other. I think that's great.
Yeah, and again, I feel like I learned a lot since I come here, and then I can always throw out my crazy idea or my crazy
Yeah,
experience back then, and like again, you guys gonna learn from that, like
totally.
catch that, getting something fun out of it, or
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna laugh about how crazy it was and all of that. So
Yeah, we each bring a lot to the table, I think.
yeah, always love that environment. So then for young coaches and new coaches out there, you know it yes gonna be tough to stay in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, prioritize yourself when you need to. I think that's the biggest thing. We get wrapped up in the season and the grind of it all, and I think it's really important to take time when you need to take time, because if you don't, like we've talked about in this talk already, you can't do anything for a year without taking a little bit of time away. So I think prioritizing yourself and not being afraid to do that, because some people, especially young coaches, can be afraid to say, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, especially these days, to like say what you need,
Yeah.
and be willing to deal with whatever comes with that. Of course, not every week I need a day off,
No,
or whatever.
not too much during the season.
But when you really need time, take time, and spend it, with, make sure you're spending time with your family, your friends, people that are in your world that are not part of swimming.
Yeah.
Because you just can't get that time back.
Yeah, and then like when you love something, like you're gonna plan thing around it. Like I literally plan my weddings and like other events, around swimming and all that. So
right, there's give and take.
yeah, for sure. So then, one last thing before we wrap up today, for your swimmer, all ages, you have anything to say for them, like, and motivation, keep them in the sport, anything like that?
Yeah, I think just really remembering that this is a process, and there's going to be high highs and low lows, and to kind of understand that going into it, and really surround yourself with supportive people that when you are in those lows, that can pick you up. And that goes for establishing a relationship with your coach as well. We have a lot of children on our team who are more quiet, who maybe are not as assertive. So I think it's our job to make sure we reach them too, so that they feel comfortable enough to come to us when they need that support. But just understanding it's a long process, and there's nothing that you can't get through with the support of the people around you.
Yes. So again, thank you, Coach Natalie, for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
For sure, hope to see you again for another topic, maybe on the team manager side of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Or LIC organization stuff.
Sure.
So
I'll be back.
All right, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
If you stick here for the entire episode, if you like the content, leave a like and comment out there. Thank you.